7 o'clock, so we'll call the meeting to order and start with the pledge. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are not, Madam Vice Mayor.
Take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Josh.
Second.
Second by Amanda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Presentation, proclamations, and acknowledgements. We have the presentation for the audit of financial year ended December 31st, 2025.
Real quick, Andy, I did not get that email.
Oh, I can send it to you.
Okay. Luke, do you happen to have a joke?
All right. An engineer, a doctor, and a priest go golfing. And after a few holes, they notice that the group ahead of them is really slow. And the ranger comes by, and they go, "Hey, what's the deal? Why are they so slow?" And the ranger explains it's actually a group of blind firefighters. They lost their sight while saving a bunch of people from a fire at the clubhouse. So three guys are silent for a little while, and the priest says, I'll pray for them. And the doctor says, I'll look into some treatments and see if I can't help them with their sight. And the engineer's quiet for a little while, and then says, have they considered golfing at night?
It's a good way to lighten the audit.
All right, I'm ready to go.
Perfect. Well, thank you for having me here tonight. I'm here to present the audit results for the year ended December 31st, 2025. Do have a slide here, if you could go forward just a couple here. Just highlighting our role in the financial statements each year, and that's to perform an audit on the city's financial statements and ensure that those financial statements are properly prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. For the audit that we performed for this year, we are able to issue a clean, unmodified audit opinion, which is the best that we can give as your auditor. So wanted to highlight that. We also issued our report on government auditing standards as well as Minnesota legal compliance. That government auditing standards report talks about our consideration of internal control over financial reporting, and we are required to report any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that come to our attention as part of that understanding. And we did note two material weaknesses this year, one for a lack of segregation of accounting duties and the other for material audit adjustments. Those findings have been present in the past and are somewhat common when you have a finance team of that size. It essentially means that there's not enough individuals in terms of checks and balances to ensure that errors are identified timely, and so we continue to have that finding when we have adjustments each year that are material in nature. The Minnesota Legal Compliance Report talks about how we consider the state auditor's office's legal compliance guides when performing our audit procedures. Similar to internal control, we don't offer an opinion or assurance, but rather we need to report any compliance-related matters that come to our attention as part of that procedure, and there were no findings in that Minnesota Legal Compliance Report for this year. The next report that we have, going two more slides, is the charts and graphs from the communications letter. That communication letter includes all required communication in accordance with audit standards, but also includes financial analysis as a courtesy, just to provide some trend data related to the general fund and the city's enterprise funds. The first chart here, going back to, yep, that one right there. The first chart.
Machine.
The first chart highlights the general fund revenues here for 24 and 25 and the proportion of each of those sources between those 2 years. Overall, there was a 4% increase in general fund revenues between 24 and 25, about $151,000 increase overall, and a majority of that occurred in taxes with an increase in levy. That area increased $271,000, and that was offset by licenses and permits, which declined about $86,000. But those are the two major changes between the 2 years. The next chart highlights the general fund budget to actual results for 2025, specifically for revenues. And revenues overall were about 12% more than budgeted, or $404,000. And the most significant variance occurred in licenses and permits. That area is typically budgeted for conservatively, as that can be volatile from year to year based on market conditions. And that ultimately came in better than anticipated, as well as miscellaneous revenues. That includes investment income, also budgeted conservatively there, and ultimately did come in better than anticipated here for 2025. But other revenue streams were consistent with budgeted amounts. The next chart highlights the general fund expenditures and the makeup by function between 2024 and 25. There was a little bit of a shift between categories there, namely capital outlay that increased from 1% of overall general fund expenditures to 5%, and that related to a land purchase here in 2025. Public safety expenditures increased about $70,000 with additional building inspections, and then public works increased $73,000 to more employees in that function. And then also did see a decrease in governmental expenditures, and that was due to vacant positions, but those are the main changes between the 2 years. Next chart highlights the general fund expenditure budget to actual results, and overall did see about 8% more expenditures than what was budgeted. The most significant variance occurred in public safety, and similar to the revenue side, with more building activity than anticipated, there were more building inspection related expenditures than anticipated as well. Capital outlay was over budget, $132,000 with that land purchase that was not included in the adopted budget. And then general government was under budget by about $100,000, again due to understaffing or vacant positions there, but those are the main variances. The next chart highlights the general fund balance. This is just a good representation of financial health and what reserves are available for cash flow purposes in the future. The state auditor's office recommends a fund balance between 35 and 50% of annual expenditures. And for the year ended December 31st, 2025, the general fund balance of about $1.7 million represented about 49% of actual expenditures at 2025 levels there. So within that range. The next chart starts a review of the city's 3 enterprise funds. These present a bit differently in that these are full accrual, and so they include things like depreciation and gives you a full picture as to the true operating cost of providing those services and whether the fees that are being charged are sufficient to cover those costs. The water fund did see a operating income this year of $556,000. There was an increase in operating expenses of about 8% with engineering fees and some consulting fees and an increase in utility costs, but still generated positive operating income. We also provide that metric without depreciation just to give a better idea in terms of cash flow in that fund, and that was positive just over $1 million. The next chart highlights the sewer fund. For the past 5 years and in 2025, there was an increase in operating revenues and expenses, and that was related to SAC fees. So did see an increase in both of those areas and an increase in operating income. There's also a decrease in wages due to fewer employees in this area, so that's netted in there as well. And then without depreciation, positive results of about $710,000. The last fund here is the storm sewer fund. This fund did experience an operating loss this year of about $53,000. There were some additional costs related to environmental well sampling and then some boring at Eagle View Station. So did see that occur, which those related costs weren't present in previous years, and without depreciation still generated a positive operating income of about $53,000. That's the main highlights from the audit as well as the financial results. Appreciate Tom, Kelly, and the city for all their help during the audit process this year. And next, I'd just like to open up for any questions.
Any questions?
What was the general fund balance? I know 25 is 49%. What was that range that you mentioned?
35 to 50%.
No other questions? Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
We'll move on to public comment. Is anyone here for public comment? Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Todd Bergstrom, and I'm here to discuss, I don't know if there's anything you'll do about it or anything, but like the cart paths or the walking paths in town. I think we should maybe take away some of the no motorized vehicle signs on some of the paths. It's just, like down here at the ballpark here, basically the path to get on is taking a cart path or the walking path to get there. Otherwise, you're out on County Road 2. If you go up to Park Street, where the park is on the south side of the road there, if you have an older couple and they want to go watch their grandkids, you know, if somebody was taking them down there with a golf cart, you know, it says no motorized vehicles. I mean, I think that's kind of crazy. Another one that I think is not very safe is if you go up to Pete's Hill and you come around, if you're on your golf cart or a bicycle, so you're not on the cart path or the walking path, I mean, you could easily get hit by a car. I mean, I don't see what the big deal is. I mean, you guys got to take care of it, but like, if you're on the walking path with a golf cart, I mean, I go down the one by, I don't know, comes off Sager Street all the time, and I've talked to a lot of people that if there's somebody else on the path, you don't go blazing by them, you pull over and let them go by. And the only reason I bring this up is I've been stopped a couple of times, and rightfully so, because I was on the path. But, you know, you could sit out there and give people tickets all day long if you wanted to. I mean, I just think we should need to remove some of the no motorized vehicles on it. I mean, is that something you guys would be willing to discuss, or?
Chief, can you just remind me, like on those county roads, is there a difference in what is allowed or not allowed? Like
County
along-
roads are, you can have motorized on those, the ones specifically in city limits. One that Todd's talking about is the one that runs, from Sawyer and Megan's house down to the ball field by the church there. And then, there's.
How about along two there by in front of the CDA and down to the ball field and stuff like that? Since it's on county
That's a
road 2.
sidewalk, you're not supposed to technically operate on that, it's not a path, that's actually a sidewalk that we just kind of don't do a lot with that, because there's just so many people going on that one.
So that's a different, it's defined differently than the one on 91 is, than that
Yeah.
trail is.
Those are trails.
And who defines those? Do we define those? Are they defined in ordinance, or is there dimensions? I mean, maybe this is, like, what's the difference between a sidewalk and a trail versus what's on the north side of 2, you know, like,
We defined it. We provided an exception for the paths along the county roads because you're dealing with 55-mile-an-hour speeds, and the expectation is when you're in town or not along the county roads that you're on the street.
Are the non-motorized signs like original to those paths being put in place, or did they come after?
I've been here 16 years, and they've been there since I've been here.
Yeah, they've been there since at least right before or shortly after I started here. And it was a result of complaints of people that were walking and conflicts between motorized vehicles and pedestrians.
There's actually one older gentleman, and he drives his 3-wheeler, and it's a motorized little scooter, and I mean, I'd hate like heck to see him get it. I mean, I don't think you'd give him a ticket, but technically that's a motorized vehicle, you know? But I'm just thinking that if we could, a few of them, like going up Pete's Hill, I think you can't get going fast or anything because of all the curves. And to go up that would be a lot safer than going all the way around to that road that goes to the top of Pete's Hill. Do you know what I mean? It's, cause there's really no place to drive for a golf cart or anything on it.
I understand Todd's concerns. My concern is if we remove that, we're gonna have motorcycles, cause we already have bikes going down those paths. We've actually had cars, we've had DUI arrest cars going down the paths.
Oh, boy. And police cars, I saw you guys today too.
We've had cars that are driving there because Google sent them there.
That's
And so they started driving through the park because Google
Oh.
sent them into the park.
So where I understand where Todd's coming from, and I know exactly the path he takes, and I understand why there's a lot of people that take that path to the games that we've talked to. But my concern is as soon as you remove the non-motorized, you're gonna get a lot of other things besides responsible people on golf carts.
Is there a way to define it in a more granular fashion?
What I'm hearing, oh, sorry,
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, it sounds like it's a worthwhile discussion, potentially.
Yes, and so we could schedule it for a report discussion at a future date where, one, we can say, here's what the rules are
I mean, I'd love
today.
to visualize too, like,
Yep.
this thing is, it looks the exact same, but it's defined as this.
Mhm.
This one, you know, it would be helpful to kinda,
Yep.
And I can say the ones along 91 and 2, we see people jogging, riding bikes, ATVs. We haven't had to respond to anything, so they've managed to make those work.
Right.
But
There been more complaints about golf carts on the paths?
Pete's Hill definitely, that is one that has generated quite a few calls about. The one that he's talking about running down to the ball field, not as much. I think that's kind of almost accepted that that's the path, but, that one not as much. The one, Glenboro cutting through to Oxford, a few complaints on that one, and that's where we've gotten more DUI arrests. Actually on that one, we've had crashes with ATVs, and that's with the sign there saying no motorized vehicles.
well, that one's deceptive too, because you're looking at a golf course, and as you're driving on it with a golf cart.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, so it's even more like, huh, alright, but I've seen some of the e-bikes flying on there, and I shot some dirty looks.
And that's with the sign there saying no motorized vehicles, move that, that's my concern. Especially on those paths, which are more used, I think.
Definitely would like to see it for further discussion.
Then we'll schedule it for as a future discussion item.
All right, that's all I ask. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else for public comment? All right. Move into the consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to pull from the consent agenda? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Motion by Kate,
Second.
second by Amanda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
If I can, and I was trying to sneak it in earlier, with the audit, I think there has to be some recognition for our finance specialist, who at the same time was trying to complete the audit, was also trying to work on the budget, and was also doing two jobs at the same time, and put in a lot of time, effort, and extra hours to make sure that we were still hitting deadlines and getting everything done by when we needed to.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, public hearing for the 2026-2030 capital improvement plan and capital financing plan. Do we have a presentation first?
We have a verbal presentation from Rebecca, so.
Good evening, Rebecca Kurtz from Ellers. I'm going to take a couple minutes and walk through the capital improvement plan, not in a lot of detail, but when we're done, we're always happy to answer any questions with this. Just as a little reminder to kind of set the tone, the main purpose for a capital improvement plan is really to help with that long-term responsible planning for your community. And a CIP, or this one specifically, is looking at the next 5 years and capital improvements that need to happen. And then along with that plan, how you would finance those capital improvements. So it's really a planning document that is the best anticipation at this point in time, but we recognize that with a 5-year plan, things do adjust and evolve, and so it is not meant to be something that is looked at this evening and then set on a shelf and in 6 years then starting over again. But when we look at the capital improvement plan that's been put together, I also want to just take a minute and talk a little bit about statutory authorities, because that is one of the reasons also why you have a capital improvement plan. When you choose to issue debt for a project or need to issue debt for a project, you need to have an authority or statutory authority in Minnesota state law. And some of the common ones that are included in that is for like a street project. If you assessed for street improvements, they are improvement bonds, or sometimes called 429 bonds, which references that statutory authority if you're going to assess that minimum of 20% to help pay for the projects. Another common one is issuing equipment certificates. There's a special authority for that. If you do debt that is financed from utility revenue, that would be a separate authority where you pledge your utility revenue for the debt service. There also are street reconstruction bonds, or what are called capital improvement bonds, where there is a process that you go through to issue that debt, and then when that process is completed, you can levy taxes for that debt service. So with that, what we are going to be talking about then later on today is specifically that capital improvement plan authority, and I will go into a little more detail on that specific one when we get to calling for our bond sale at the next item. In the CIP, again, it's a 5-year plan, and you can see on the screen that there are 6 projects that have been identified. The first one that we'll spend a little more time on as this evening progresses is improvements to, or well number 5, improvements to the water treatment plant and blending projects. We will be looking at issuing debt this year for that project in the amount of $1.6 million. As I talk about statutory authority, that one is under what the legislature looks at as 444. That means for that project, you would be pledging utility revenues to pay the debt service, so it would not come from tax revenues. The second one we'll talk about this evening is the city campus land acquisition, and that is in a project amount of $370,000, statutory authority of $475,000, and that falls under the capital improvement plan authorization, and there is a very specific process that needs to be followed for that. The water tower is anticipated, along with some pavement rehabilitation, to issue debt likely in 2027. The water tower is anticipated to have a project cost of $10.47 million, with the pavement project having a project cost of just over $1.3 million. With those, again, water tower being a utility would be anticipated to pay from utility revenues. And then the pavement rehabilitation, we are anticipating on that project that there would be assessments included, and so that would likely be issued under statute 429 or improvement bonds. The third one in 2027 is for the purchase of various pieces of equipment. We are anticipating an amount of about $800,000. There is a special authority that allows you to bond for equipment, and with that, it then allows you to use tax revenue to pay that debt service. The final project in the CIP for this 5-year plan is then the pavement rehab, again anticipated to be in 2030, with a project amount just over $1.6 million. And again, like in the 2027 project, it is anticipated that that pavement rehab project would have assessments so that you would use assessment revenue and then taxes to make the payments on that. So with the ability or the need to issue what we call capital improvement plan bonds for the land acquisition specifically this evening, there is capital improvement plan that has been put together, and you will see as you go through that document in more detail that with each of these projects, there is a summary of the project cost, some estimated cost of issuances, which is including fees for Ellers, fees for bond attorneys, fees for the underwriter or the, what we call discount, and then the anticipated par amount for the project. We've also outlined the anticipated term, an anticipated interest rate. We have tried to be conservative on that, but the farther out we get, the more difficult it is to project where that will be. And then also set some anticipated debt service expectations. Along with each of the projects, you also will see there are some findings that are made. And with that, that is part of the requirement that is needed for issuing capital improvement plan bonds, for example, the city land acquisition project. Under statute, there are findings that you need to make to be able to move forward with that process, including some different tax impacts, some explanations of what the benefits and the need are for the project, and just some discussion on if this is something that you can use other partnerships, and that has been outlined in the plan. With the capital improvement plan, there is a public hearing that is required, so at some point this evening, you will open the public hearing, take public comment on the plan, and then after that public hearing, there is a resolution that has been prepared by your bond counsel to, if you would like to consider approving that capital improvement plan as it's presented this evening. If you choose to do so, then the next step in issuing the bonds, specifically for the land acquisition piece in the amount of, or the project amount of $370,000, is there would be a 30-day reverse referendum. And so we are then this evening put into a waiting period where if a petition is received from residents that contains 5%, signatures of 5% of the eligible voters from the last general election, then there is a different process that we will need to go through to continue to move forward with that piece of the bond project. However, assuming that there may not be that reverse referendum and petition, then on August 23rd or any date after, you could move forward with the issuance of the bonds. And again, this requirement is specifically tied to that land acquisition piece of the capital improvement plan for this evening. I will pause. I can go into more detail if you want on the different projects, but that is a high level that looks specifically for at least your 26 projects this evening. And happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council?
Very well laid out in the packet.
All right. With that, I'll open the public hearing at 7:28 p.m. if anyone is here to speak on that. All right, we'll close it at 7:28 p.m. and I'll take a motion to adopt resolution 2654.
53.
Oh, 53, sorry, I was looking at the envelope.
So moved. Amanda Beebe.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Amanda, second by Josh. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to general business. In continuation of the previous item, issuance and sale of $2.145 million of general obligation bonds, Series 2026A.
Thank you. So with that approval, we can take our next step. And I believe in your council packets, there also is a pre-sale report that I'll be referencing. The action that is before you is to call for the sale of $2,145,000 of general obligation bonds, Series 2026A. As we just discussed, the proposed issue for 26 includes a CIP piece, which is for the land acquisition for the municipal facility campus. That project amount is $370,000, and debt service would be paid for from ad valorem property taxes. The second piece of the bond issue is a water piece. For well number 5, the water treatment plant modifications and some blending equipment. That is in a project amount of $1.6 million. And again, debt service on that portion of the bond would be paid from water utility revenues. The bonds are being proposed to be issued for a term of 15 years. Principal would be due in the years 2028 through 2042. However, there would be a call provision, or what that means is a provision where you could prepay or refinance if interest rates were at a point where there were interest savings. They would be callable in February of 2036. With the issue, in the past, you have had your general obligation bonds rated by Standard & Poor's. We are recommending doing that process again. Currently, the city has a AA+ rating, and for this issue, we would go through the rating process, request a new rating. I would not anticipate any significant concern or changes going through that. With that, I will just make a comment that we do continually monitor your debt for opportunities for savings, whether it be prepayment or refunding them for a lower interest cost. We continually monitor that, and unfortunately, and this is probably not a surprise, in the interest rate environment that we are in today, I do not have any opportunities like that to bring forward, but it is something that we continue to do as a provider for you. If you do choose to move forward with calling for this bond sale, there is a resolution in your packet that was drafted by your bond attorney. And the next step in this then would be, assuming you approve that resolution, Ellers would go back, work with staff, and prepare the documents, including the official statement. Staff would have a call with the rating agency in mid-August to confirm the rating that you have for the bonds. And then at that point, the official statement is also distributed not only to you as council members and the community, or it's available for publicly, but then also distributed for underwriters to start to review. As mentioned, that 30-day reverse referendum period ends on August 23rd. And so then on August 27th, we would take bids in our office that morning. We would be back here at the council meeting that evening to present that and make a recommendation to award. Bonds are typically awarded on the lowest true interest cost, which is the interest rate, but factors in those costs of issuance for the underwriter and for other involved parties. And then, assuming that it is awarded on August 27th, the funds would be available to the city on September 17th. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And then if you do choose to do so, there's a resolution.
Any questions?
No, it's just a lot of interest. But it's only a 15-year term, too.
I don't want to, I am hoping we are being conservative on the interest. We have estimated 3.99%. With our rates that are in the packet this evening, we did add 50 basis points or 0.5% to allow for the unknown in the next month or so on where the market might go. But I will say nothing would make us, as I'm sure all of you, happier than if we come back on August 27th with something lower than that.
Take a motion to adopt Resolution 2654.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Amanda, second by Kate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Actually, second by Josh.
Oh, sorry, second by Josh. I'm losing it.
I wasn't listening.
move on to the next item, Old Police Department Concept Design Report, ISD.
So we have a presentation tonight by Josh from ISG. He was the consultant that worked with the work group, and then the work group began on the design work, to prepare the conceptual design report. And I will also turn it over to Brandon, who is our staff lead for the project.
Yeah, so you guys have been in the loop the whole time we've been doing this project, so as you know, we've put a lot of time and effort into this. In 2024, you guys directed us to create an old PD study work group, and we did so, went through every various option under the sun, and came to the conclusion that we wanted a flexible community space. So we brought that back to you guys a few months back, and you agreed to go forward with that, so we hired Josh at ISG to do some of the architectural work. I just want to say before Josh gets into his presentation that ISG has been a fantastic partner in this effort, and they've been great to work with, so I'm excited to see your presentation.
Okay, don't oversell us too much. And from it, what it sounds like, you guys asked for this, so hopefully there aren't too many pointed questions at the end of this. But and maybe a project to add to the capital improvement list. But anyways, yeah, I have, I think you guys have in your packet the full report that ISG produced, but tonight is kind of just a high-level overview of basically the process we went through, the decision process, all of the options we reviewed, cost estimate at a high level, and then recommendations. So with that, just if no one here has ever heard of ISG before, we are a Minnesota homegrown company, started in Mankato. Now we're 800 employee owners. We're in several states now. I am out of the Twin Cities. I'm an architect, among other things, but I've also spent a number of years working directly as an employee of cities and nonprofits and transit authorities. So I've seen kind of project planning process from not just the consultant side, but also kind of from the hard decision side of the table of how to use your resources wisely. So as Brandon said, we were kind of called in after the work group had decided that they wanted to explore an adaptive reuse approach to this building. We structured our process in 5 steps, basically. Site visit to review existing conditions, and then a series of workshops to develop conceptual options, refine those options, and ultimately arrive at a preferred option. Yeah, I think you guys can see this. My cursor and stuff isn't in the way. So the existing conditions review, you as a city have already spent money a number of times doing in-depth review of this building. So we kept our effort on that on the very high level. We reviewed it purely really just on like what has decayed further from the last study, and then taking a lens of what would be impacted should this project move forward. So on the left side of the screen is some representative photos of kind of the existing conditions, and then on the right side is a very, very kind of dumbed down summary table of basically what is possible to maintain should you embark on a project and what would require a major overhaul. So the big takeaway here is all of the check marks are on the right-hand column. There's a lot that has to get done. Any questions on this before I move on? Everyone kind of understands the state of that building? Okay. Workshop 1 was a visioning exercise to establish a shared vision among the parties that showed up to the workshop. And I would say that the primary takeaway, I mean, we did what I think was a fun exercise of writing down our guiding values, important uses and functions, and our kind of deepest fears for what we're afraid of should this project move forward. And my big takeaway here was this community and history the importance of that in this building. And then that's also echoed again in the concerns of just if the project doesn't happen, there would be a loss of community history. It was also noted that there was pretty much the exact same kind of vision established in the other work groups as there was in this exercise. So took that as a good sign that everyone is aligned in what they want out of this project. So with that vision established, we basically started on developing conceptual options, and we did that over the subsequent workshops. So first we came with options 1, 2, and 3. The way ISG kind of presents conceptual options at this stage is we do a, we call them the 3 Fs, familiar, a fresh, and a fearless option, kind of what's the lowest lift option versus what would be like maybe a unique idea or kind of scary to actually think about. So that's kind of option 1 is the familiar, 2 is the fresh, and then 3 is the fearless. And the scope of this building and the size of it, it's really, you know, we'll talk through it. It's not that big of a skew of options, but so yeah, option 1 was basically trying to be the lowest lift possible, lowest cost possible, and that was keeping the exact footprint of the building and really minimizing any changes to the location of interior walls. So this one resulted in the smallest multi-purpose room and the most amount of kind of ancillary space. So in terms of where you're investing your money, it's not on the primary function that this building wants to serve. Did not get great feedback from the work group on this one, and essentially they told us to shelve this and not move it forward. Option 2 was keeping the same building footprint, but rearranging the inside and prioritizing the multi-purpose room. So that is kind of the, you know, the fresh version, taking what you got, freshen it up. Third version is the fearless version, and that is demolishing that odd little addition on the west side of the building. That addition presents some code complexities with its adjacency or location to the ball fields concession building. So this was an option of, hey, maybe it's cheaper if we just demolish that building and try to condense the program all into the original, you know, brick one-room schoolhouse footprint. So both option 2 and 3, the group felt like they had some legs and they wanted to see them develop to the next round of detail. So these became option 2A and option 3A, and the next round of detail was essentially test fitting the program blocks by adding walls, doors, chairs, tables to see what could actually fit into the building. So option 2A, this is kind of how this laid out during workshop 3. And then option 3A laid out kind of, you know, this way, pretty good, but ultimately the decision here was it just wasn't really, it wasn't worth giving up the existing square footage of that west side that would be demoed. So at this stage, we also got some high-level cost information from our cost estimating partner that doing this demo didn't actually save that much money. It was a net of like $20,000 between option 2A and option 3A. So the group felt at this point that it wasn't worth the you know, small size savings to essentially lose functional square footage that already exists in the building. So essentially option 2A was selected by the group as the preferred option, and ISG developed some conceptual visualizations just to aid in the informational marketing and sharing of this project. So we developed an exterior perspective, just showing what it might look like cleaned up, with some parking rearranged, new light fixtures and things like that. And then a stylized floor plan of the final version of option 2A, a little bit tweaked from what you saw as the floor plan. This kind of gives a feeling of what the interior finish would be and what the interior layout would be. As I kind of explained at the workshops, the cost estimates were, they're not for a high-end finished building. They're for office, grade B plus. Definitely not in the A category. It's something respectful and nice to the building, but not over the top by any means. And something that will really last with the amount of wear that would be put on this building. And then we also, worked on the site plan a little bit, but essentially this is the site plan that was developed during the police department study evaluating this site in 2019. We just, brought it forward into this study. So this would be adding 37 parking spots to what is currently there. And yeah, that was that. And then the budget comparison. So we had originally just agreed to basically do the renovation cost, but staff asked us to compare it to what a new construction would be, just to make sure we were actually making a wise recommendation of how to use public funds. So that being a really good idea, I had the cost estimator pull together the new build numbers, and overall, it is significantly cheaper to renovate the existing building. And a few caveats on this, the summary of the budget is the site costs are included in this, and then this is escalated to construction start of spring 2027. And then the new build numbers there, that would be tearing down what you got on the existing site and rebuilding on that existing site. So this is not like acquiring a new property somewhere and doing it. So any questions on the high level budget summary at this point? Nothing? Okay. Next slide in here is just, should you push out the timeline to actually, do this project, costs go up. This is really just a slide visualizing escalation and the idea that if you wait, the same amount of scope today will cost more in 3 years. So this isn't meant to scare you or anything, or make you do this project today by any means. This is just to clearly lay out, if you wait, what happens a lot, what I see happen a lot is you start having to cut your scope down, right? Because you established a budget of 2.1 million or whatever, right? And then you want to do it in 2029, and you get to 2029 and you all of a sudden can't afford the same amount of scope. So just want to lay that out there for the group. So ultimately, ISG's recommendation is to move forward with option 2A. It closely aligned with how the previous work groups were thinking about the project, how our workshops went, and ultimately it was prioritized the flexible multi-purpose gathering space, preserved the community asset, and also was ultimately cheaper than trying to accomplish this through new construction. And then the next steps we put on here are really, oversimplified for what actually has to happen next, but everyone likes a 1, 2, 3. So, one, I do kind of want to hear from council this evening if there's any feedback or changes in priorities that need to be or should be incorporated into the design. And then two, there were a couple of enabling projects, I would say, or tasks that have to happen for this project to actually take place. One was relocating all of the public works items that are currently stored in this building, finding a new home for those, and then resolving the lot location and access agreement with the ball field and parking requirements. And then number three would just be identifying funding sources and schedule. So with that, I am open for questions.
I mean, maybe the question, I don't know if it's for you or for us, is, so next steps, I mean, is no or no go? I mean, I think it's, we're a go at some point potentially. The next question is CIP inclusion or not? And from what we just did, it probably rules out 2027, I would assume, for the most part, unless we were to change something, but that changes things that we just did. So when would we include it, if we chose to include it in 2028 or beyond? I mean, is that just the logical next step, and then we start to do exactly what you were getting to of more of the design and funding and stuff like that?
Yes, no, so, yeah, you're right. The first question is, do you want to remodel the building for flexible community space, given the information you have today? If the answer is yes, then the next question is when. There's a couple different ways you can go about doing it. Say, nope, this is something we want to do based on cost escalation. This is just a high priority for the community, staff. Get Josh to put together a proposal for the next phase of design work, and we're gonna move ahead with, more detailed design, more detailed budget. If it's yes, but we need to talk about it more, then the logical next step would include it as an item for discussion within our next CIP cycle, which we just ended tonight, and guess what? We're gonna be starting here in just a couple months. And then the council at that time can weigh it out against other capital needs of the city and basically decide need, cost, ability to pay questions. The third option is we want to do it, but we don't see it happening between now and 31, so maybe we leave it out there and we just kind of bring it out periodically and see if now's the time. Once you make a decision on the when part, that really dictates next steps.
So I guess the first question is this something we want to do?
Yes.
Yes. I'd say so.
Well, that was straightforward.
Yes.
And now when?
And now the when question, because that really dictates how soon and when we have other next steps, so.
I like the idea of bringing it back to a meeting and discussing again when Mayor Andrew is here.
Would you want to discuss it as a freestanding item or as part of the CIP process discussion later this year?
I think that it needs to be a freestanding item so we can hear what his thoughts are as well. 'Cause then from there we can decide what time frame we're looking at. And then if we wanted to add it to CIP or not. I don't see it being done in 2027. I'm very hesitant for 2028. But like I said, those are just my opinions and thoughts.
The mayor had indicated that I could express his thoughts on the issue if you guys were curious at the meeting. And they're rather high level. But he had indicated that it was his general thought that we should look at doing it sooner than later because of the cost escalation, and he felt we should discuss it as part of the upcoming CIP process and then work at where there could be a more detailed discussion of weighing it out against other priorities, et cetera.
He basically took verbatim what I said, before 2031 for sure, and included in the next CIP planning process is kind of where my head was at.
Nobody can read that.
Yeah, you can. It's perfect.
I'm okay with that.
I'm good with that plan. I do have a question though. At what point do we do some sort of like community engagement? Like make sure that we're not completely off base? And
That's-
people are gonna be
that-
like,
that's-
what the hell are you doing?
That's a good question. So now we have a number and we have a proposal. So if the council feels that it wants to get community feedback on it, I think first you gotta decide what timeline you're talking about. Just my opinion, if you're looking to do it in 2031, getting community feedback today may not be as meaningful as getting community feedback in 2029 or 2030, where you're actually closing in when you're actually gonna do the project. The CIP, it's a plan, it's an expression of intent, but you're not actually pulling the trigger yet. The other point.
Can I jump in?
Yep.
So ISG does community engagement, and we do pre-referendum services as well, support services. So we would usually engage to do community surveys or open houses and kind of gauge the public's tolerance for tax increase to pay for a project like this, or get their feedback on programming or overall cost, like 12 months before you think you're gonna break ground. And you do that to gather feedback, hone in your messaging, and right-size the project. And then probably 6 to 4 months before like the referendum would go, assuming that's how it's funded, we typically would like do a pretty robust informational campaign with posters, a website, and we can, do like Facebook posts, kind of anything like that to just raise awareness about the project. But that's kind of the time, like that 12 months is the timeline that we see.
Is that something that's included like in a proposal like this, or that would be additional?
That would be outside, like this was just conceptual design to get to the idea of what the project is, and then pre-referendum support services would be, additional.
Yeah, next phase from an architectural standpoint, which would not, if you're looking post 2028, would be down the road a ways, but we would presumably bring Josh back, and then they would do they would actually do a more detailed design, which would would also result in a more detailed and current budget at that time for the project. But Brandon thinks differently, but we wouldn't be, if you're looking 2 to 3 or more years down the road, we wouldn't be doing that tomorrow, so to speak.
And I would also just add that, I think absolutely important to get more community feedback, but if you'll recall, the purpose of creating the work group was to do that kind of, so we, picked one person from each elected and appointed official, and then ad hoc people from the community and local business owners, so I think to get to this point here today, I think we have already done that minimally.
I agree.
No, I mean, in my brain, and then maybe this is part of that CIP discussion though, is where it fits within the CIP or within the plan. I mean, 2028 and 2030 are gonna be bonding years, so there's an opportunity for revenue there at the state level, to potentially contribute towards it. So if we can land on one of those even years or kind of coincide with some of that, then we can do some of that public engagement and use that as part of the messaging to legislators and stuff for additional funding and things too, so.
Sounds good. So we'll include it as part of the CIP discussion?
Yep.
I mean, as far as priorities or other details things, and this is far too early in the process, but my brain goes to, and I know that the pictures were completely estimates and all that stuff, just ADA accessible bathrooms and complete accessibility throughout. The tables, I mean, making sure that, folks can get around the tables and stuff and that, those types of accessibility things, so.
Yep.
And I know you already,
I was like, all of that was part of the conversation.
well, the ramps in the front still.
We talked about door
Yeah.
types, everything.
Yeah, we talked a lot about
Yeah, we
all
d-
that.
Perfect.
A lot
I saw that was
of,
one the
deep
5
dives,
things, whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you for the
Anything
presentation.
else? No? Okay. Thank you, guys.
We'll We'll move into reports and start with administration.
I have nothing specific to report unless you have any questions for me or any other administrative staff.
Public Works.
Corey did not have anything he wanted me to relate in addition to his written report.
Police.
The only thing that I have is that, we're hiring again, so we have another process going and accepting applications, and I think it closes August 3rd, if I remember correctly.
Fire.
Yes, so as the council is aware, we establish approximately every 3 years a memorandum of understanding with the Elko New Market Fire Relief Association. And the purpose of that memorandum is to establish an understanding, it's a non-binding agreement related to what the city's contributions will be to the relief fund on an annual basis over that 3-year period, and in return, what are the terms or understanding in which the city would support increases or changes to the benefit level. We have what's called a lump sum benefit plan where firefighters, after they have been on the department for 10 full service years, start to become vested, and then at 20 years are fully vested, and they receive the benefit amount, currently $15,000 per year of service, multiplied by the years of service that they have. And we define under what terms we would support adjusting it. And you might ask, well, it's the fire relief, why do we have to approve it? Because the city taxpayer is the underwriter for that fund. If for whatever reason, due to economic reasons, bad investments, whatever it might be, the taxpayer is still responsible for making sure that that benefit level is supported financially. So we'd be required to essentially levy to get up to where we're at. I can say that over the life of the association, the city has never had to, that I'm aware of, had to make an involuntary contribution. It's always been voluntary. I can also say that the fire relief has also over the years done an excellent job managing their relief fund. And in the report, you will note both where we sit from a contribution standpoint. We contribute more than in the lump sum plan, which is the vast majority of departments within the state. We contribute more than any other city, not by firefighter, but in total. And we also, at the same point, are in the top half dozen departments within the state with regards to the level of benefit that we provide. And I can say, and I've reported this before, unlike a lot of other departments which are still paid on call, which is cheaper than having full-time staff in the area, we're the only one that's not suffering from lack of recruitment. We've, in fact, our last recruiting class applicant pool was the largest we had ever had. So it's meeting the need of the incentivized. And I've always said, with regards to firefighters, I've interviewed hundreds of firefighter candidates over the years, and I can say with confidence that there's only been 1 or 2 that have even asked about compensation related to it. When people get on the fire department, they want to be in backdraft. They want to be charging out of the building as it's exploding behind them, carrying a child in one hand and a kitty in the other. They want to drive big red stuff, and they want the brotherhood.
It's on Netflix or Hulu right now, is like one of the classic ones, and I haven't gotten Michelle to watch it, but it's a sign.
What the retirement benefit does is when you're 12 years into it and you're having to go out to a pig barn fire at 3 in the morning when it's 20 below, that's what keeps you doing it. So so there is a clear benefit to it. The MOU provides a clear understanding of what that relationship is going to be. Prior to putting the MOU in place, the city administrator would be discussing terms with the fire relief on an annual basis, and many years it wasn't the same person from year to year. And by the time we got it worked out, we were starting discussions for the following year. So we wanted to make sure that something was put into place. And since we've done it, it's worked very, very well. So we've been doing this for like 15 years. The person who serves as the representative from the city council on the fire relief board is usually tasked with negotiating the updated MOU when it's that time. Kate is currently in that role, and she has helped negotiate the last 2. So Well, we're due again. It expires at the end of the year, so we're looking at the next 3-year period. Kate approached the fire service area work group, which is our advisory body, which includes representatives from the townships. And we have to keep in mind that between the two townships, they pay the majority of the cost for the fire department, about their feedback related to the update of the MOU. One of the largest expenses, operating expenses in the department, is pension contribution. And the recommendation is that we do a 3-year contract again, that we keep the contingency amount or funding level at 110%, and that as far as an annual adjustment to the contribution, that it be 3%. The logic behind that is it has been historically 5% per year. And to put it into simplest terms, 5% is different on 80,000 than on 180,000 going forward, and we are by a bit of a stretch the largest contributing city in the state. And so the thought is that we should continue to make adjustments to reflect essentially a COLA adjustment, but 5% might be getting to be on the long side. So that's the recommendation to council. So Kate is seeking feedback from the rest of the council on those recommendations so she can begin discussions with the fire relief on the upcoming MOU.
I support everything, the direction that you guys were proposing or thinking.
Okay,
I agree.
Same.
that's easy. There we go.
We need a formal motion.
I think direction is adequate because it still needs to come back to you guys for approval ultimately anyway.
We'll move on to engineering, and I hope you have a second joke.
No, I'm a one-joke pony. So, yeah, nothing formal.
All right, community development.
There was a memorandum in your packet related to a review of the city's sexually oriented use codes, zoning codes. Periodic review of those codes is important to ensure that the city's zoning code is in compliance with not necessarily state law, but case law. Constitutional law. Yeah, not state law, but constitutional law. Maybe Andrea could take this one. The last time the analysis was conducted was in 2019. It's important to periodically review it because the city continually is annexing land into the city, rezoning properties, so that will change the percentage of land available in the city. The accepted benchmark, I guess, has been 5% of the land available within the city, or of the land in the city would be available for sexually oriented uses. The analysis was reconducted now in 2026. The Planning Commission reviewed the analysis at their May meeting, and we've basically found that the city's zoning code is in compliance, or we don't have any concerns about the code as it's written. There's 126 acres currently that would currently be available for a use to locate, which is 6.34% of the land area in the city.
The threshold that's often used is 5%. Is that correct, Andrea? That's not based on, that's not an explicit number in federal code or statute. That's based on case law?
Case law.
Okay.
Any questions?
No.
All right, move on to parks,
No updates.
CCEC.
We had a meeting last night, and, not last night, sorry, Tuesday night. Just went over fire rescue days. Are you gonna do or is that coming back at a later meeting?
That'll be coming at the August 13th meeting.
Okay. Had some great ideas, feedback for fire rescue days, what we will be doing maybe a little differently next year. Getting ready to start planning for Halloween. So if you guys have any questions, ideas, and then the community picnic coming up August 22nd. Anybody that wants to come, be there at 11, 10:30. Would be great.
If you can let us know in advance, that would be great.
Would be great.
And we'll host it regardless, so even if you can't help, if you wanna show up with kiddos or anything like that, we won't run into a open meeting violation.
We're doing hot dogs again this year?
Yep.
Yeah, nice.
Yep, we did decide this year what we're going to allow to happen, partially for selfish reasons for the city to get volunteers, we're going to allow those nonprofits that service Elko New Market, hence the Lions, the Boy Scouts, and the Chamber of Commerce, they can each bring a table out to one of the inflatables and sit there and monitor the inflatable and talk about their nonprofit to the parents while the children are
idea.
jumping. So, we're gonna do that this year. Other than that,
Well, the item for the 13th, so the council's discussed about changing the composition of the group, and we have people that are interested in that have been serving as just general volunteers, but we'll be plan to return at the first meeting in August with a resolution to amend the composition to provide for at-large employees and adjust the local organization numbers to reflect those that are actually participating, and then a second resolution to actually make appointments.
that's about it, guys. Got any questions?
Move on to scale, if there's anything.
Nope, it's
No meeting in
July,
July.
so
Off in the summers.
everybody's out for the summer.
I-35 is next, and it's the same case there. Anything from the policy committees?
The leagues met this week. I was able to make the Monday one, I was unable to make Tuesday one, and then Metro City starts next week, so they'll be starting to roll out. His first meetings are just overviews, nothing that spectacular.
Any discussion by council?
I have one item, if I can bring it up, it's very minor, but we have 10-year anniversary T-shirts. We actually have a big pile of them. They were bought at the time with the intent of everybody's gonna wanna buy these things, cause they'll be like hotcakes. Well, they're now a little bit dated and we have them. We run into the issue of what's the disposition of city property? You can sell it at market so people can come and buy them. You can throw them away. There's limited options. Basically, I wanted to have a discussion with council about what we do with them. And the city attorney is here. There have been thoughts of, we just sell them for $1 because they don't have high value, people can buy them. There's been discussion of that, we'll just give them to employees, as a recognition item for service, but I don't know how complicated that gets. That's why we'll refer to the city attorney for feedback. But I wanted to get some feedback from the council of, with the discussion, Jerry, what we do with the things.
Well, she shook her head when you said giving to employees. So I'm assuming that's a no-go. I'm sorry. But can you sell them for $1?
You can sell them for $1. Can we just put them on a table for free? You could do that.
Do that at the community picnic. I bet they'll go fast.
Yeah, that's a
I'll
good
take, I'll
idea.
take a couple.
Yeah, they're good sleeping shirts.
They'll cost you $1.
Oh, yeah, but that's not fair,
I do have to say that the ones where we have the most of are for people of a more robust stature.
Those are still good sleeping shirts.
I say put them out in the hallway for free.
And let council know when you're doing that, so maybe.
If staff does want them, because I have to admit the one I have, which was when I was less robust, is one of my favorite shirts. Can staff still buy them before we put them out in the hallway for free?
Yep.
Okay.
So you could sell them
We've
for
set
a
a
quarter.
price for a penny. We don't make pennies anymore. A nickel.
Whatever a fair market price would be for a dated t-shirt.
Quarter's reasonable.
I mean, at a garage sale, you buy a shirt for a quarter.
Is that a reasonable logic?
Sure.
Okay.
There we go.
All right, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Kate, second by Amanda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.